If we went ahead and held the vote tomorrow, the deal would be rejected by a significant margin. We will therefore defer the vote scheduled for tomorrow.
It's all building up to the big moment in Parliament. It seems to be going your way, Chuka. Do you think Parliament is going to give the people another referendum?
Well, I think the problem that we've got here is that there is no controlling mind, there's no directing mind of Parliament, of the legislature in the way there usually is. And usually that directing mind is the executive, it's the government. And they know what's going to happen, they've got the majority and they control stuff. But no one's in control. So everything that happens over there in the House of Commons is determined by if there's a vote and the way the numbers fall. And the government whips and the opposition whips really don't know how those numbers will fall. And so in that context, you end up with really no majority for any proposition. And if no one can agree, how else do you resolve it than refer it back to the people?
Well, you could go for the Prime Minister's deal, which actually gives the Labour Party almost everything it says it wants from Brexit.
The Labour Party has 6 tests, one of which is to get the exact same benefits.
Yeah, but that's a silly test, isn't it?
Yeah, no,
ignore that test. The other 5 tests are all met by Theresa May's deal. So,
well, I'm not sure they do, because one of the tests is that this shouldn't do any harm to the economy generally. And of course we know from the government's own economic impact assessments that we forced them to publish that it is going to do harm to the economy.
Yeah, but that's just reliving the arguments of the 2016 referendum.
Well, it's not.
That's just saying we ought to remain.
No, I'll tell you why I think this is a different kettle of fish compared to 2016. Is that in 2016 we were having a hypothetical discussion about what would or wouldn't happen if we voted to leave the European Union. And the fact of the matter is that we didn't really know what out looked like, because Boris Johnson and co told you, for example, you'd get your £350 million extra per week for the NHS. Let's park that, because that was clearly a lie. But what was going to happen and what could we get? They were fairly ill-defined about what that was going to be. Now we actually know what you can and you can't get out of the negotiations. This is no longer a hypothetical discussion. What's already happened, we've gone from being one of the fastest growing economy in the G7 to one of the slowest growing economies. Inflation has pushed up the price of goods because of the depreciation of the pound, and we started to see thousands of jobs move to the continent, and we haven't exited at this point.
Sure, but okay, so what happens if Parliament has to make a choice between Theresa May's deal and postponing Brexit in order to hold a referendum? Which way do you think it's going to go?
Well, there is no majority for her deal. She pulled the vote yesterday because it was going to go down today to a resounding defeat. And the problem with it is that somebody like me, who doesn't want us to leave the European Union, and if we did would want us to have the closest possible relationship, isn't happy, because it's quite an extreme break from the European Union. And if you are a Leave voter, you're not getting what you wanted either. And so, in a way, she's had this, her deal has had the effect of unifying the two poles on this debate. I do think we should apologise to the voters in some senses, because it is a mess. Our politics is broken. Some might say that's because the country is divided, and to some extent we're doing our jobs because we reflect that. But it is really sad. I mean, you talked about Gazeboville. We've got crews and live broadcasts here from all over the world, from the US, different European channels. CNN is over there. And the picture that this paints of our country, that is so well respected around the world, of being this bastion of stability, of sense, providing leadership in the world, we are just smashing apart. I can hear the groans right now. We just want to get this thing done, get it off the table. I'm afraid we've got to level with people, treat people like adults, and be honest. This Brexit thing is not going to be going away anytime soon, no matter what happens.
So if there is a referendum, what is the question, and can you get the House of Commons to agree on what the question should be?
It's quite clear that the House of Commons doesn't support the Prime Minister's deal, and that it's got minority support. I think you have got to have the current deal that we have right now, which we know is a superior deal in my view, on the ballot paper. Membership of the EU. But equally, if you're an arch leaver and you want a clean break from the EU, the kind of Boris Johnson Brexit, if you will, I think that has got to be on the ballot paper as well.
But someone like Boris Johnson would have to be Prime Minister to put that referendum to the people, because Theresa May is never going to offer the people that choice, is she?
Theresa May's not running the show. She went down to a triple defeat in the House of Commons last Tuesday. It's extraordinary. Look, we live in extraordinary times. The extraordinary's become the ordinary, and her premiership is, this isn't an unusual premiership because she's not running the show. Parliament is, to some extent.
But we hear that cabinet ministers are thinking about a referendum as a way out of the impasse. And presumably they're thinking about a referendum on Theresa May's deal. Have you spoken to any cabinet ministers about this? Do you think there is support in the government for it?
I have spoken to ministers, and I spoke to a cabinet minister who's very involved in the discussions on what to do next on this. And I think they were of my mind, which is there is no controlling mind of the House of Commons. So they, as a government, are not in control of the House of Commons. They think it is, questionable whether the Prime Minister will be able to secure the changes to the withdrawal agreement, particularly the backstop on the Irish border issue, over the next couple of days. And their view is, well, one thing they did say to me about my side of the argument is at least you've got a plan.
So you think there is support in the government for a referendum, potentially, if there's no other way?
Well, let me put it this way.
Situation?
It's not even a question of whether people support it or not. The question is, if not a referendum, then what? And there needs to be something. And this cabinet minister in particular, they are part of a group that is deeply opposed to us leaving without any deal at all.
Yeah.
And so, frankly, if you don't just want to watch the clock tick down to 29th of March, and you're fairly relaxed about us leaving without a deal, and you don't think there's any other option, it does drive you into having a people's vote, because there is no other option apart from that.